Hello, all, and welcome to episode 23 of Enterprise Tech India Unplugged. I'm your host, Deepak, and with us we have host of our participants, starting with Kumaran, who is a Chief Mentor and Chief Technology Officer at Tiny Magic. And we have Venkat, who is Chief Engineering Officer or CTO, I would say, at one of the startups at Aquatech, which is one of the startups in the aqua farming business. And we'll get and there is a lot of new stuff they are doing. We'll hear about it from Venkat. And we have Nishanth. I'll let Nishanth introduce himself. Hey, Nishanth.
Hi, Deepak. Actually, I'm playing the senior technical architect role at IBS. IBS is mainly focusing on travel domain, travel transportation, logistics domain, and right now I am playing the technical architect role of the API component of the passenger service system, the reservation system product that I play.
Great, thank you, Nishant. So we have this wide audience, wide participants here who actually have a great amount of experience in this area. So what we are going to do is, the topic today we are looking at is making sure that we have understanding of how AI is considered to be responsible AI. Because I'm just referring to one of the papers which has been published as a draft by ETI-Unplugged. So ETI-Unplugged, for those who do not know, is an organization within the central government of India, which frames these policy frameworks, right? So they create these policy frameworks. So they don't necessarily decide the policy, but they provide the input for the government to take action. So, and some of times those actions become laws or rules inside the central government. So this is an interesting take which Niti Aayog has started. And if you go back and look at this document, and I will put the link of this document in the show notes. You should be able to see it on the niti.gov.in site, which is called Responsible AI. So what I want to get a take from all of you, starting with you, Kumaran, is, so when we start talking about responsible AI, why is there this need of creating this concept of responsible AI? Are we scared of AI? Is there a reason why we should be framing policies around it, that the government has to think about it? Why is it important, Kumar?
Okay. So I'll ask, I kind of try to take a very simple view of it and then do it, right? So generally that's how I would do it. So let me ask this question. Nishant, are you married?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you stopped beating your wife? You're on public. So you have to answer the question. Have you stopped beating your wife?
Yes.
Yes. So that means how long were you beating her?
Beating in the sense, just debates, not about just.
I'm telling physically. When did you
stop?
Have you stopped beating her physically?
And there was no beating happened till now.
Have you stopped beating her physically?
That's an interesting question.
So that's the key point there.
Because I can say an yes or no here.
Exactly. Correct. So I'm just simplifying this problem. No, I'm not an expert on AI, right? I don't know the thing. But this much I understand. You ask a wrong question, right? Or you have a very poorly framed question. Let me put it that way. Not a wrong question, a poor question, a poor quality question, right? The answer will create a much bigger mess.
Yeah.
Okay, so the quality of questions is very important. Now I'm going down to the basics. Why? Because I'm not an expert on AI. I understand some amount of it, right? But I haven't really gone depth into it. But I'm starting with the basics. This is the problem. We're talking about what all solutions can happen, but we're not very clear about the problem itself. One. Second, the inputs that needed to solve the problem also needs to be at a certain level of maturity. Now, if both are poor, AI will create calamity for us. And I think the greatest example which I understood was there's a thing called Future of Life where I had read it, where there's something called a paperclip problem. It's very simple. You tell AI to say, make as many paper clips as you can. Okay. Now, what that program did, it started destroying all the buildings. Because to get iron rods, it will break the building to take the iron rods from the building. It figures out that in the concrete structures, there is iron rods. Okay. It will kill a human being to take the metal parts which is there inside my bone to make a paper clip. And all I told that bot is make as many paper clips as you can with the resources. It will say, Deepak is there. There is one pacemaker inside his heart. Patak, it will put the hand out, take the pacemaker and make paper clips with it. It is doing its job correctly. Right? It can figure out, oh, okay, Deepak is on. So all that AI is there. Deepak is having a heart problem. So he has a pacemaker. Pacemaker has got steel. With steel, you can make paper clips. Let me go take it. That's all. So the problem, this is how I understand the overall problem, right? And there are many forms in which all of us would have heard. So I think what happened in this case, I framed a poor quality question. I just said, make as many paper clips as you can. Whereas what should I have said? Make paper clips without harming any life, without breaking any existing structures. Now, if I tell that, what will it do? Some old junk car is there, it won't break it. It's an existing structure. I won't break it. It won't make paper clips. Okay, so the key problem where I understand is this. Inability to frame a good quality question and to give a good quality input to whatever AI systems that exist around us.
So according to you, that is the main principle for actually doing responsible AI. You're saying you ask responsible questions.
Ask responsible questions, correct. And I think the easiest step probably is before you start solving an AI problem, have a desperate inclusive set of people. When I say inclusive, people with different thinking, different liking, different preferences. So in a technology world, have a developer, have an operations guy, have an IT operations guy, have a HR person, have people from different countries, have people speaking different languages, preferably have somebody who's completely unread, right? Doesn't know technology, doesn't know, maybe he doesn't even know the English that you're talking with. Have those kind of people in the room and try to frame a question and come to a consensus on this is the problem I want to solve with AI.
So actually that brings a very important question. So I just use Niti Aayog document as an example, but it seems a lot of the big tech companies have also started this concept of responsible AI. So it's as if in my view, it is an attempt to preempt this regulation and control being put by governments on them, because AI is considered to be dangerous in certain areas, right? It's considered to be
correct.
That people, because it's an unknown for a lot of people, so the tech companies are trying to preempt that they should not be put under pressure by certain regulation put forward by governments. So what they're doing is they're trying to self-regulate themselves, if I can use that term. They're trying to self-regulate themselves, right? So Venkat, I'm going to ask you this question: is to from your company's perspective, do you think about I'm sure you have machine learning and AI somewhere in your organization being used for definitely for some of the projects, right? So in your world, do you think there is a need for framing some policy around what we will do with AI and what we will not do with AI?
See, if you say the AI and everyone, every company, they want to do something with the AI because AI became a buzzword. Everyone wanted to use that AI to their like company benefit or own benefit, whatever it is. So like framing around policy, yeah, it is like as Kumaran said, it's up to the like what they wanted to do it, no? So the policy should be around what you wanted to do, then only you can draw the policy around, okay, so this thing you wanted to do and these are the policies you should have, right? So thing is everyone is the vast technology available nowadays, like even a 12th guy who are just passed out from the school, they can build a AI because already tools are available. They don't know to learn anything, right? So but no, everyone is talking AI, but without the right input. When you don't have a right input, AI always AI will give you some output. You don't know whether that is like right or wrong, right? That is where like people are missing. Sir. That is where something will go wrong.
So,
So
so
you
you're
need
saying the
to.
garbage in, garbage out kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like your policy should be around that input more focus than output. When you are giving the right input, obviously that output will come right. So like that is what I'm feeling, right? So if everyone is like building around without the right input, they are trying to accomplish something. So as like Kumaran rightly pointed out that we should include like in the machine learning we call it features. No, the features like should include inclusive of all the parameters. Like as he has mentioned, like we should include people from all around the technologies, all around the like whether you don't know whether that people will be useful for this AI or not, we don't know. Like until unless we have tested and we have compared with the output, we don't know, right? So that is exactly uh, my point.
All right, thank you. So Nishant, so since you work in the airlines and the passenger uh, segment, and I'm sure because you deal with huge amount of data, there is always this need for big data and machine learning and AI. All these things, as an architect, I'm sure these terms are being thrown at you all the time, right? So do you
Yeah.
think about
First of all,
things
yeah.
like
First,
inclusiveness or non-discrimination, things like that? So do you think about those things when you are building software for passenger reservation systems and things like that?
yeah. First of all, I would like to say, in my experience, especially in the passenger services system that I am working, actually we didn't have any much opportunity to get into this AI or machine learning so far. Maybe in future we might have things. So, but my observation from one or two hackathons and these things that I have attended, uh, and my current that actually I was thinking about that. Like, so AI usually it works with people data, right? People data and even with people emotions that they are capturing. Let's say an example, like assume we are standing, a passenger is standing in front of a system or a pricing system or an ancillary or an SSR or baggage pricing system, and let's say the passenger is having a good emotion, like let's have a smile on his face, then the system might give an higher price ancillary. And if the system read a sad smiley or a sad emotion on the passenger, then uh, to make the customer engagement, the system would give a less price ancillary. That is for the customer engagement and to make an attachment for the passenger to that airline. So what happens there is like the AI systems, or at the end of the day, what my point is like, as a normal passenger, as a person who doesn't have any idea about systems, if we are using a software, standing in front of a scanning system, anything, uh, if we are not clear about the underlying, if there is an AI or something like which captures our emotions, our data, and or using and working on that data to give the end result from that system, I think there is some kind of the permission from the passenger or the user is required, or that kind of guidelines to be ensured while building a system. That I think that is needed, because some kind of GDPR, the GDPR things. So
Right.
similar kind of people permission is also required from this AI context also. That's my view on this.
So, Kumaran, I think what Nishant brought up is something related to ethics, right? This is related to
Because
ethics.
Deepak, just to add on, like,
Yeah.
see, even if we say, like, if we are capturing an emotions or people data, and we should ensure that we are not persisting that data, people's emotions or data in our database or things. If we are capturing the data for that stateless computation to give a better results, and it's fine. But we, as a system provider or a system, supplier, we need to ensure that the public users details are not keeping in there, or their emotions, those kind of things are not keeping, or not capturing the snapshot of the passenger at
That's
that
true.
time in the system.
And I
Right. So I think so, Kumaran. I
see. I
think
think
this is an important point for you to weigh in on the ethics of this, because what Nishant brought up is how ethically can you use AI, because the same thing, whatever he just described, the whole concept of offering a better price to a not so happy customer and giving a higher price to some sort of a happy customer, somebody, to use our phrase called monkey in the box, could do the same thing, exactly the same thing, without being ethically challenged about it, right? Because a person standing at the desk could also judge the same thing. He says, oh, this person looks happy, let me charge him a little more, or this person looks unhappy, let me give him a little more discount so that he's happy. So what's your take on that, Kumaran? Ethics of using machines to do that.
So actually, I got the question. See, dealing with I don't know. It's a very complex question. I really don't know how to handle it. Okay, but I can say where I can start, like the tiny start. So one of the things which I will share from my experience is that it's kind of related to privacy and personal information and what we are doing with that, right? So I would kind of fall to some of the basics I already know. What is the best way not to have bugs in your code? Don't have code.
Yeah.
What is the best way to have safe data? Don't store it. Okay. So now if you don't store the data and if you don't have code, you cannot make mistakes. Okay. So it would be something like, now this principle, we become extra 5 times more careful about this. So draw a clear boundary between what you have and what an AI system is going to be. A very clear boundary. In defense world, they will call it air gap. Okay, so they call it air gaps between systems. For example, a staging and production, right? Normal office and let's say a missile monitoring system will be separated by air gaps, which means literally there is no physical connection between them. They won't even have a router separating two networks into two virtual LANs. Okay, so they'll be completely separate. So when we do AI systems, I think start off with something like that. So tell that to me to support ethics, I will have an air gap between my AI application and my core application. First steps towards ethics.
Yes.
Because even by mistake, I won't do a mistake. I would say that would be the first step. I'm committed to ethics. So I'm drawing an air gap between my actual system and my AI system. Because you're committed to that. Now, this is going to be painful. It's not easy. Right? Like, if, for example, Venkat, I'm going to say, change your AI applications, or Nitan, in your thing, right? Do AI where there's a air gap. It's a huge, painful act. Too much of inconveniences in terms of developing it and doing it. But doing that shows your commitment to ethics. I would say that is where we need to start first, because the AI itself is too complex. We don't know where all, how all it will go. And if you look in my case, one of the things which I tell for GDPR is I took a big pain of telling I will have no personal information of people who are there in my application. So how do I pass GDPR? I'll say, I don't have your personal information. Now, what are you going to come and audit? Audit. I have only the data relevant to my application. How many journals they did, what checkbox they did. How does it matter to you? You don't even know who did what. The only closest thing is the name. I just go in my user table. I say, rename name with XX. You are done. Nobody will know anything, including me. Okay, so that makes it very easy for me. If I just have to obfuscate my DB, I just have to run rename name with X in my user table. If I've done, that's it, I'm done. If by mistake somebody runs that query today, I'm done for. I don't know who has done what. There's no clue. I cannot figure it out. Right now, that is a risk that, or a pain that I'm willing to take to ensure privacy. That's my commitment to privacy. So I would say, because AI itself is a responsive thing, it's very hard to put rules to it because it's changing. It changes from system to system, application to application. But one step which we can clearly take is I will draw a clear boundary between my transactional operational system and my AI system.
But Kumaran, just to, because
that sets you up on the right path.
Right. So let me probe it a little bit more around what happens, because this air gap may not work for a very long time, right? So this air gap, today we are saying we want to separate AI from core systems, but what happens when the core system itself is AI, right? So it's not, this is the way there is, and Nishanth and Venkat can probably give their views on that, because within their organization, I'm sure there is pressure coming in from management, right? That you need to bring in AI into everything, and where is that approach coming from, right? So how do you see that, Nishanth? Can you really effectively make air gap happen?
Yeah, that's what I am trying to say. Effectively making air gap would be a bit challenging, because even we say there is an air gap, again the initial topic that we discussed would come into picture. At some point of time, that the architecture consistency, the gap might be filled, and there might not be any boundary between this core application and the AI. So ultimately, what happens is, again, the initial ethics that for what reason, what we put that gap there, that the entire thing will go for a toss. So from an architecture or a system point of view, keeping a pure air gap or a gap between the core system and AI system, I think it would be more challenging.
Right. Venkat, what do you think? Is an air gap possible in your
Actually, it is very difficult, very difficult to maintain that air gap. See, initially you can, as Nishanth said, so initially we can start with air gap. That at some point of time, anyway, we need to give the real-time suggestions. So that time, when actually we have to like somehow break up the air gap and connect with the AI, so that you will get the like real-time experience you wanted to give the users, like, so that time we have to break. So that is unavoidable, right? So that's the one thing. So it is very difficult.
right? So I think what all of you have sort of indicated in different ways is that today there is a lack of guidelines internally of how to handle this thing. So people means, for example, what we are trying to frame here, what Kumaran suggested, is to start with an air gap. What Nishanth and Venkat is telling us, that it is very difficult to do such a thing. So I think what we are seeing as a trend now, which Niti Ayog, I would say, is probably following it from what they are seeing, what the companies themselves are doing. So there, I would say it's a good thing that people should have some guidance, and maybe the architects need to help build
Correct.
these guidance for companies to follow, right? And I would look at all of you to frame such guidance uh, for uh, for your organizations, for to see how AI should be used, right? So it's not what AI. So this is one of the quotes which I heard from one of the leaders in a large organization. We said that we are not concerned about what AI can do. We are concerned about what AI should do, right? So it's the uh, can do is a very big thing. It can do a lot of things, right? So it is for the architects and the people who are creating this software to decide what it should do, right? And what it should do has to be guided by something, right? So what is that guidance which Kumaran you are looking at, that you gave your version in some ways, that it should not be doing any harm, right? You said it should not be doing any harm as such, right? What other guidance do you and the air gap, we have all sort of concluded that it is very difficult to enforce. So Kumaran, what do you take, what is possible?
See, I will just say, let's not give up in principle. At least I
Mhm.
understand there are practical issues.
Mhm.
Okay, but in principle, I'm committed to having an air gap.
Mhm.
So that's the first stance we should take as
Mhm.
architects.
Mhm.
It's hard, it's difficult. And communicate this to all stakeholders. Hey guys, by not creating an air gap, because we don't have budget, we don't have time, we don't have people, whatever be the reasons, blah, 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 document it. Telling, the right step we are not taking. As architects, it's see, unless as architects we communicate to the other stakeholders, they will not know.
So
It is
transparency,
like
transparency.
right? Awareness also. So it's something like the business might not know the dangers or the impact of having both these systems within the same server. How will they know, right?
Mhm.
And what is the key difference? What scares me, I will tell you. Now, I don't have an answer, but I tell you that fear I have and I react to that. Now, in an old word, when I run a query, right, that select statement is the only column that data will go out. But
Right.
now when I throw a DB at a AI, I don't know what data it will pick from there and what connection it will make. I have no idea.
Right.
Okay, so that's the thing. So I think step one would be, okay, fine, fair enough. If you're telling that you can't do it, make it clear to all the people that, you know what, I'm doing this. I don't know what complication it might end up with. Now, let's not even go to the extent, like, for example, something like, let's say, let's take a very simple thing, right? I'm supplying groceries to somebody's house. Okay. Now, that system, looking at the consumption pattern of customers, will figure out, right? Like, for example, let's say Venkat likes to eat non-veg on Sunday. Okay. And every second Sunday, he prefers having chicken.
Mhm.
Okay. So Friday evening or Saturday morning, it will send a message telling Venkat, shall I send half a kg chicken to your house? And AI can do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Now it can also figure out that for the past 4 weeks, chicken has not been ordered.
Mhm.
Now, can we discover also that Venkat is not in the house and it's worth
Obviously.
stealing?
Maybe he's most likely he's not there.
Correct. So now let's assume that there is that insight it generates that the consumption is not happening here, right? Now, somebody who has access to just that insight, he need not have the whole data. Now, this is a key point here. Previously, that person had to get the entire data and write queries and figure that out. Today, because you have AI, all that guy has to know is to ask the right question. He will just say, tell me houses where they have not had food for the past 3 weeks.
Yep.
It will give him all the list of all the houses. Now, a grocery shopping can now become the short list for which all houses I should go and rob.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now, interestingly, an unknown entity, right, or an unaware operator, no malicious intent, he's just innocent. Okay, so his friend will ask him, hey, what all I want to occupy, just tell me which all houses are empty, which all houses didn't have food for the past 3 weeks. This guy will ask that question and just tell, these are the houses that didn't have any food for the past 3 weeks. Right? Nobody can actually connect this and that.
So in some ways, it comes back to your original thing is asking the responsible question, right? So
yeah, let me give some more malicious things, right? I'm thinking like this, so I'm getting it. Which all houses ordered? What is that thing? There's something favorite among kids. It comes in that egg-shaped thing, very popular. What is that called? When our kids
Kinder
were
Joy
small.
or something.
Kinder Joy, exactly.
Yes.
Kinder Joy. Venkat, you have kids, right? They love Kinder Joy?
Yeah, they love very much. My son loves very much.
Loves, right? Now,
Yeah,
all I have to do is, if I'm a kidnapper, what do I need to look for?
Which houses are ordering Kinder Joy?
I know exactly. I can have a child I can kidnap from your house. Now, look at it this way. This is where it gets dangerous. Houses which have maximum Kinder Joys. That means they are rich. Kinder Joy is not a cheap chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay. Which house ordered 10 Kinder Joys? I know that kid is worth 10 lakhs.
Yeah.
Now, as a retail guy, it sounds, you know what? All I'm doing is just prediction of customer pattern.
Right.
It's not. So that's why I think.
Actually, now I am very scared. Actually, after.
So I think this is a cautionary tale, Venkat. This is a cautionary tale for you to consider, because you are also in the field where you are creating software using some of these techniques, right? And that is where I think that whole asking that responsible questions and making sure that nobody is able to get the information to wrong questions or the questions which can cause harm, basically cause harm, right? Malicious intent, right? Now, and I believe that is the most difficult part, finding out the malicious intent. How do you really find out malicious intent from questions, right? How do you prevent AI from causing harm, right? Now, this is a policy. As a policy, you can set it up and say, okay, these principles we are going to set up, and say these core principles are for ensuring that AI does not cause harm, right? That is, it will have safety and reliability. It will treat everybody equally. It will have inclusivity, non-discrimination. It will have privacy, security, all those things, right? We will be transparent about what we are doing with this data. We will have accountability, that who owns this data, right? And we will reinforce positive human values. I'm just reading out from these responsible AI principles which Niti Aayog has put out, right? Now, some of these are actually very, very big word, and I encourage all of you to go and look at this document, because it looks at from various perspectives of how AI might impact the government, the citizens, the regulators, the private sector, the research community, the standard setting bodies, right? So finally, anything which comes into regulation, somebody has to set some standards, right? So tomorrow there might be guidelines coming your way, says, okay, you have to have a policy which declares, because all companies which are using software or AI, because it is considered to be quote unquote dangerous in some areas. So you may have to have a declaration, self-declaration of how you are using AI and how you're ensuring that these malicious things are not happening. Right. So Kumaran, you want to
Let
say
me
something?
add, yeah, actually, see, as I was thinking about it, right, I have to scare both of you even more because you said it can't be done. I have to get your commit. Let's kind of to add that even more, right? I think I really have to scare off you because at no point you can even have a doubt on this commitment, right? Now, I was thinking another use case, right? Now, how does this happen? Now, this happens because what do we do? Now, think of it. I have a customer support executive, right? In the old world, I will have to write explicit queries, 50 different reports to answer a customer question, right?
Yeah.
Today, I have a chatbot.
Yes.
Now, I am telling chatbot
Exactly.
self-service.
Yeah.
Deepak, as a customer, can answer his own question. He can check when was my last order, when did this happen, like that.
Yeah.
Right.
True. True.
Okay, now consider this. In previous world, there was only a report. Somebody had to call the customer support and that question is answered. Now let's say Deepak's user ID is compromised.
Okay.
Not your application. Your application is still safe. Your data center is safe. Deepak's user ID is just compromised. He just left his phone on the somewhere or he forgot to log out. And it is like one innocuous chat application like a Swiggy application or a browser. Now there I will go and say number of Kinder Joys ordered in the past 10 months.
Okay.
Okay. Or like in Microsoft, we have third party level 3 support handlers.
Right.
I'm sure in your company at some point you will have agents who are directly to their customers. So you will give them that support system. To them you will say find customer query and like that. So there will be one guy who has malicious intent. Now in your previous world, you didn't have any reports to kind of click and figure out consumption pattern. But because now AI can answer all sorts of pre-order, post-order, what you like, what you didn't like, it becomes very tricky. That is where it gets really... Now, to get a sense of this, if you go to Power Builder, right? Power BI. Most of the reports today have something called generate insights. Just go to Google Analytics.
Yep.
It will actually see there is something called insights. If you click on that, it will tell you questions. Right? It will figure out. It says, you didn't. So even for somebody who didn't even have a question, that will tell you what question today. In fact, the AI can make you think in a crooked manner.
So I think what Kumaran is asking both you, Venkat and Nishanth, is to consider that you need to be responsible for what your AI does.
I think it's mandatory we should be responsible for what because so that's what I would like to say. As Deepak said, this responsible AI things that I think is become more relevant in my view. Like especially as when Kumaran said, to when we architect a system or build an AI system or build a system with an AI capability, we should have an air gap. So that can be considered as a design consideration or a mindset all architects should have while building or maintaining a system. Along with that, to have
good point, Nishanth. Just one small thing. It should be a design constraint, not a consideration.
Yeah, design constraint. Correct. Yeah, that would be the right term because it would be more challenging to keep that air gap between this actual core system and the AI system. So to ensure that we are maintaining a proper gap and all, as Deepak said, it would be good to have a proper guideline or a mandates like this PCI DSS and the GDPR things. If we have a guideline or mandates, then we can have a proper frequent auditing, proper or yearly auditing on these aspects to ensure that this gap is still there, or we are still following the ethics to not having any breach on the personal data or sensitive data that we are handling with.
Yeah, as Deepak asked the very first question, what is the policy around? Actually, in that policy itself, no, we should add in that we should maintain the gap between the AA system and our normal system. So that is one of the policy also.
But I think one thing
Yes.
became very clear with this discussion, Deepak. It is that just like performance, right? We tend to
Yes.
think performance as an afterthought.
Yes.
But AI cannot be an afterthought.
Afterthought, correct.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
too risky. It's too potential. It's too powerful to have it as an afterthought.
Yeah, and Kumaran, just to just an analogy, this one point, whether the security is an afterthought or a system security.
I was about to use the word security, okay, but I kind of said because that's gray. So I took performance as a thing. Security is also kind of fits in the same place, nearly the same. But if performance is like level 1 weakness, right? Security will be level 5. AI will be level 10 weakness.
So I think this is a good point. We can conclude this discussion, and so as an encouragement to all of you who are listening to this, and hopefully subscribing to our YouTube channel, and following us on LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever else you like to follow us, I would say please have a look at what your organization is doing around AI, and think about how you are being responsible for AI. If you want to use some guidance, you can use guidance coming out of Niti Aayog, the link which we are publishing here with this show. You can just look at that,
and there's
and it
also
gives,
another site called
yes,
Future of Life and Open AI. These
okay,
will be good resources.
okay. So we'll put those links in the show notes, and you can always go and check. And please provide feedback to us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or an email if you want to send it to us, or YouTube comments. We will respond to that. And thank you, Venkat, Nishanth, and Kumaran, for a very engaging discussion. And see you guys all next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak
Thank
and
you.
Kumaran. Thank you.